70,000 years ago, the total number of human beings alive on this planet may have dropped below 3,000 people. Not 3 million, not 300,000, 3,000. Right now, a single packed stadium holds more people than that, and every scientist, every artist, every parent, every child across 8 billion lives today descends from that tiny, terrified group we were one bad winter away from never existing. So the question isn't just, how did ancient humans survive the Ice Age? The question is, how did you survive it? Because the real answer, the one buried beneath the textbooks and the documentaries, is stranger and more powerful than almost anyone realizes to understand what our ancestors faced. You need to feel the scale of what the Earth had become. Imagine standing where Britain will one day exist, except there is no coastline. The English Channel is gone. You are standing on a frozen plain, and if you walked east without stopping, you would pass through the Netherlands, Germany, and Russia without crossing a single body of water. The oceans had shrunk, sea levels had collapsed by over 120 meters, glaciers 3 kilometers thick had buried entire continents. North America, Europe, Asia gone under white, where forests once stood, a frozen treeless wasteland called the Mammoth Steppe, stretched in every direction, brutally cold, brutally silent. Beautiful, the way only things that can kill you tend to be. Now place a human being in that landscape. No fur, no claws, no natural insulation. A thin-skinned primate who cannot outrun a wolf, cannot outfight a cave bear weighing over 1,000 kilograms, and cannot survive a single night in minus 40 degrees without help by every law of biology. We had no business being there, and yet we kept walking north. Why? Because humans carried something no predator on Earth had ever developed the ability to imagine tomorrow. Sometime between 50 and 100,000 years ago, something shifted inside the human brain. Every other animal on Earth lives trapped inside a single moment. They react to hunger, threat, cold, fear. They respond to what is directly in front of them. Humans began to predict they could watch a mammoth herd and calculate where it would be in 3 days. They could look at a cave entrance and picture it as a winter shelter, not just for tonight, but for the next 4 months. They could look at storm clouds and make a decision that would only pay off weeks later. This sounds small. It was everything, because once you can imagine tomorrow, you can plan, and once you can plan, you can coordinate with other humans, and once you coordinate across time and space, you stop being just another animal trying to survive. You become something the world has never seen before. But a brilliant mind still freezes to death without the right tools. Fire changed the equation entirely, and not in the way you might think humans were, not simply warming themselves around flames. They were engineering with fire. They used it to harden wooden spear tips, to smoke meat for weeks of preservation, to drive predators out of caves and claim those spaces as their own. Fire allowed humans to operate at night, to see in total darkness, to move through terrain that had previously belonged exclusively to apex predators. But fire did something even more powerful than all of that. It created a circle, a gathering place. Picture 30 people huddled around a flame in the deep dark of a glacial winter. Outside, the wind is a constant low howl across the tundra. Inside that ring of firelight, something begins to happen that has never happened anywhere else in the history of life on this planet. People talk, they share one. Hunter describes where the ice was dangerously thin. An elder explains which routes survive buried under snow. A mother teaches her daughter which animal tracks mean safety and which mean run. One person's discovery becomes the knowledge of 30 people, and those 30 people teach their children, who teach their children. And suddenly, information is not just traveling sideways across a community, it is traveling forward through time. That fire circle was the first classroom, the first library, the first network, but knowledge still needed a container. It needed language, real complex, symbolic language, not grunts and signals, but sentences that could describe things that did not yet exist. Language that could say, when the birds fly south and the berries disappear, move to the lower valley because that is where the deer will shelter, and that is where we will survive. The winter, and alongside language came something that confused researchers for decades. Art cave paintings in Spain, France, Indonesia, Australia, carved figurines, shell beads, traded hundreds of kilometers across continents, ochre ground into red pigment, and painted onto skin and stone in patterns. With no obvious practical purpose, scientists initially dismissed this as decoration. Then they understood what it actually was. Art is identity ritual, is cohesion. When a group performs the same ceremony, tells the same story, history paints the same symbols. They are building something invisible but more powerful than any physical tool they are building us. They are drawing a boundary between the people inside the circle and the hostile world outside it. They are saying, we belong to each other. We will sacrifice for each other. We will feed your children if you die on the hunt. In a world where one bad season could wipe out an entire group, that invisible bond was not a luxury. It was the most important survival technology ever created. And here's the proof it worked. Meet the Neanderthals physically. They were extraordinary barrel-chested with bones so dense and muscles so powerful that researchers estimate they were significantly stronger than modern humans. Their nasal anatomy was specifically engineered for cold air. Their bodies were built for the Ice Age in ways ours simply were not. They were also intelligent. They made tools. They buried their dead evidence. Suggests they cared for their elderly and injured, which is remarkable for any species operating in that environment. They survived in Europe for over 300,000 years, and then around 40,000 years ago, they vanished. Not in a sudden collapse, gradually a retreat, a thinning, a slow disappearance from the fossil record valley by valley, site by site, until there was nothing left. The leading theory today is not that we killed them, it is that we out-networked them. Homo sapiens trade routes stretched hundreds of kilometers. Obsidian from one mountain range appeared at campsites 1,000 kilometers away. Shell beads crossed entire continents. This was not just trade, it was a living nervous system, a continent-wide web of alliances and shared knowledge that allowed any single struggling group to draw on the resources and discoveries of hundreds of other groups. Neanderthals lived in smaller, more isolated communities when their local environment collapsed. They had nowhere to turn when ours collapsed. We called on the network. Now we arrive at the chapter that almost ended everything. 74,000 years ago, a supervolcano named Toba erupted in what is now Sumatra. This was not a volcanic eruption in any sense you have ever encountered. The Mount St. Helens eruption in 1980 reshaped an entire American landscape and made global headlines. It released approximately 1 cubic kilometer of material. Toba released 2,800 cubic kilometers, nearly 3,000 times more powerful. The ash clouds spread across South Asia, the Middle East, and East Africa. Sulfur dioxide poured into the stratosphere and formed a reflective haze that blocked sunlight across the entire globe. Temperatures plummeted, food sources collapsed. Animal populations crashed, and human populations crashed with them. Genetic research revealed something that genuinely shook the scientific community. Every human being alive today carries almost identical DNA. The genetic variation across all 8 billion of us is statistically astonishingly low. For a species that has lived on 6 continents for tens of thousands of years, the explanation is a bottleneck, a moment in history where the population crashed so severely